when you're scrolling through Facebook, come across these things and you just get really upset at these just immoral causes, these things that are happening in the world that we're supposed to be a civil society, but these things happen that shouldn't be, that government's not taking care of. And why doesn't somebody do something about this? And oddly enough, I've got my Facebook picture on here. I went ahead and put my real one on here. But it's always why doesn't someone do something about this problem? And you can petition the government, you can have them write regulations and laws and have them enacted, and you can see a change in our society. But we know that's kind of ineffective sometimes. We know it takes a long time for those changes to take place. We know that it costs a lot of money, and the benefit usually isn't exactly like you want it to. So it kind of, in our case of what we do, it came down to, well, who's going to solve this problem? And there's a point that you go, well, that someone is me, and I can do it, and I can directly affect it outside of government, and actually affect change right there in my communities, and the most cost-effective, and you can see that change immediately. And so that's what we've done with our Feed the Need event. I guess you have seen the videos of what we've been doing. This is going to be our 6th year doing it. I guess when I was younger, how this all came about was, I would give money to homeless people, and I would see these problems on the street. One week I was moving from Tennessee back to Texas and had an extra week before my next job started. I parked my car and got out in New Orleans and lived homeless for a week, and went and did everything they did, and went and slept in abandoned houses with cardboard in the freezing cold, and went and found where they found food the next day. And so I kind of put myself in this mindset because I wanted to try to solve this problem. And to do that, you kind of have to put yourself in their shoes and walk a mile in their shoes. So that's what I did. And when it all came around, we were seeing all of these cities starting to enact laws against feeding the homeless and trying to control the situation, but they weren't fixing it, and people weren't getting the help that they needed. So we did a kind of a direct response to the problem not being fixed in our communities, and we started where you can see the most change, which is in your own communities, in your own neighborhoods. And we started this Feed the Need event, and it was just a couple of us guys getting together and asking for some donations. And with our other activism we do, we never asked for money before. So it was a strange thing for us to ask the community for help. But there's enough of the people out there that wanted something done about it too. And all it usually takes is that one person saying, let's do something about it. And that's kind of the power that we don't know that we have. Because once we first said, hey, we're going to go do something about this problem, we had a line of people behind us that were there to help, that were there to support us and to chip in and to take some of that burden off of us. But that's really the key that people don't understand, is that you will have the ability to do it once you make up your mind to do it. And it can be a great change and effect in your own community. So we started this small event. Every year it's doubled in size. We started getting tons of donations. We've got people this year driving in from Florida and flying in from other states to come to this one event. But what we've really tried to push is kind of this servant leadership, to where we're not trying to just grow this one. We want people to start ones of their own when they see these problems in their own community, to start it there, because it just takes one person. And there's plenty of other people that are sitting there doing the same thing, saying, why doesn't somebody do something about this? And when you stand up and you're like, I'm that person that will do something about it, everyone will come together, and you'll see a wonderful thing happen. And it's great that we get out there and we get to help these people that are having a hard time. There's a lot of sociological problems that are happening out there that cause these people to be on the streets. There's a lot of addictions and bad home lives, and just people that are down on their luck. There's a lot of things that cause someone to be there. But what we're trying to do in our particular event is to just help them through the hardest time, which is the winter, where people are actually dying and freezing to death. And we kind of put aside the socioeconomic reasons for them being there and just give them the help that they need. And so I hear that you might be getting extra credit to come out to the event. Y'all should definitely come and join. Bring a ready-made dish if you want, or just help us kind of sort the clothes and get them to the people that need them. It's a good event, and it makes you feel good, and you know, I can't express enough how empowering it is to find a problem in your community, whatever it is. It may be homelessness, it may be you know, some other cause, some other issues that you're seeing that's sprouting up, and go out and try to solve it, and get the community behind you. It's a very empowering thing, and you should try it sometime. But come on out Saturday. We're going to be coming out again later that night at 7 o'clock. We're going to meet up at the parking lot across from that Austin Street shelter, because we've had this slight problem where anytime you're giving out charity, anytime that you're giving away free stuff, there's people there to take advantage of it, and we know that is part of it. So at the end of the day, I know that the person that did need it got the help, regardless of someone else who may have taken, you know, what they didn't need. I helped that person that did need it. And the one thing, our donations mainly go to the more expensive things like tents that we buy. So I made a promise that all my donations go 100% to the people that need it, and to keep it from being taken by people that don't. We started a secondary event that night, where we show up after dark on the freezing cold nights, which is going to be down in 30-degree weather that night, and we go out as a roving gang of people into the night and find the people that are literally sleeping on the street. And that's something that we don't really think about. These people are literally on the sidewalk, shivering in the middle of the night, and we set up tents for them and make sure that those donations that I promised would get to the people are going to the person that actually needs it in the moment that they need it. And that's kind of my extra due diligence, you know, my promise to take donations, and, you know, makes me feel better about that. And you know, also being transparent, and, you know, posting all of our receipts and all of our documents of where the money came and went. None of it goes to us personally, and you know, that's kind of the thing that makes it more efficient in government, that makes it more efficient than a lot of these big programs, is that when the people are directly helping, that 100% of that effort and that energy all goes to the cause and fixes it, and can do it a little better sometimes. So if y'all want to come out, we're meeting at that parking lot at 7 o'clock, and about 7:30, 45, we'll all go out in a big group. If you want to bring some warm food, like in a little cooler or something to help give them in the middle of the night, that's always good too. But it's a great event, and be a huge group of us out there, and hope to see you guys. Here's Matthew Short.
Morning, everybody. As a grassroots special interest group that we are, we study government and current events constantly. And what we have seen in this situation is not legislative process being taking place over what's happening with the homeless, but actually it's happening in the local city government with the health departments. And so they're just making policy without going and voting on it, going through legislative process. Recently there was a story that came out of Kansas City where the health department showed up, and some people were going down once a week and cooking chili dogs and soup and taking it down to the homeless. And because of their policy, the health department showed up and they poured bleach in the food. So they said, well, we don't want you to poison these people, so we're going to poison the food too. Sometimes government doesn't always look at the interest of the individual, because they look at their policy, they look at the rules that were done. Like when we walked in, I think it was you that said, I vote to take somebody out of the table. Who seconds that? Well, because we have rights, and because we have the ability to do that, we don't just have the right to everyone in the class vote one person out or throw them out of a place, because legally we have the right to be able to protect ourselves and to protect members of our community. And so what we're doing with our interest group is we're taking our potentials and our actual group, and we're going down and we're affecting change in these areas that we want to. We want to see that not happen in DFW where it happens in other states, other places. In Vegas, they're starting to ticket people for helping people that are out on the streets, whether they give them a blanket or whether they give them food. The thing that the government is looking at is that people aren't getting bad food, that they're not getting food that's going to hurt them or something. But I mean, I'm sure most of you, if you went over to your friend's house or whatever, you probably raid their fridge or raid grandma's fridge or whatever. It's the same sort of thing. We're putting on a barbecue for people that need it, especially at Christmas time. And every year, like you said, getting tents and getting sleeping bags to them and stuff, we're going out there and affecting the change. And what's happened is the health department and a few other people in Dallas have actually backed off this. It's allowed for the other groups, like the church groups and 501c3, tax-free churches, or tax-free groups or the other interest groups, to be able to continue these services that the city can't even provide. In some of the shelters, if you're less than 45 years old and a male, you're not getting a bed in the shelter for the night. So you're stuck out on this cold night like we have the cold weather right now. And that's something we want to change. Not that I believe the government should provide more of this for these people, but not restrict others from being able to help in the way that they want to.
You guys have index cards at your table. If you have a question, write your question down, and if you'll just hand it to me, I'll be the question asker, I suppose. That way, you don't have to write your name on it. You can just take a few minutes, and if you have a question, write it down. And we'll use the rest of the time for you guys to ask questions and see what they've got to say. Just hold your card up when you have a question. I'll take them all.
Some of the groups that we're involved with actually do go legislate or go to the legislature in Austin and lobby them for these sorts of things. So certain grassroots groups like this that are out on the street doing these things also have branches of our interest groups that all they do is talk to the lawmakers down in Austin all the time to try and get these things changed.
There aren't any silly questions except for the ones you keep to yourself.
Leave me alone.
We like hard questions too.
See some good questions. Hey, if you think of a question while they're answering these questions, then just go ahead and write it down. How early does the event start?
10 a.m. We get there, we unload and set up tables and whatnot. I think there's going to be some rains. We may be setting up our shelter also on the street, but we need people there sorting clothes, getting them into male and female in different sizes so it's easier to hand them out. And then about noon we start serving food and handing out all the clothing. So about 10 a.m.
If we want to bring food, how much do we need to bring?
No minimum amount. You can bring none or one little dish or an entire 5-gallon pot of chili, whatever it is that you want to bring or can bring.
I think the last couple of years we fed somewhere between 400 and 500 people in one day and sent food with them. They were able to take, whether it was apples or cracker packages, and they love getting food, but especially the coats and socks and things like that.
Yeah, and that is something that if you are bringing a food dish or you don't have that, but you can get little snack bars, things they can take with them. That's also important. There's not enough of that they can take with them.
What are grassroots groups specially?
Grassroots. I think the term grassroots is because it comes up from out of the grass, right? I don't know, correct me on this, teacher, but these are groups that just get they get sick of something, or they get tired of something, so they just start doing it. They start beating their feet on the street, start walking and going and doing those things. There's a lot of different grassroots groups that have come out. I believe that the movements with Dr. King and others, they were grassroots groups that came up because there was something they wanted to change, so they started walking in the street. They started making change themselves. Be the change you want to see in the world.
How young can be the clothes specific?
Have you seen a lot of children out there?
Not a ton of children. A lot of the shelters, the traffic we get usually are the adults coming to and from the shelters. There's usually not a lot of children, so we don't collect too many children clothes. We have got a few. If y'all do have some and they do get brought, we do get them to the appropriate places. There's a battered women's shelter that is for women and children right down the road, and if we get those donations, we will go bring them over there afterwards.
Do other shelters in the DFW area know about this event, or just that Dallas area?
They do know about the event. In fact, running 6 years, the last year we came showing up, people were like, "Oh, these guys are back again," because we usually put on a lot of food, and it actually turns out to kind of like a little Christmas party. A lot of times people are so happy afterwards, they start dancing and eating snacks and food and having a good time.
Absolutely.
So anything that we don't give out personally to everybody, we then take to some of the shelters.
You know, I think I mentioned this maybe earlier last week. The last time I went, one of the things that I did was help hand out sleeping bags. And when I was doing that, I was talking to a woman who worked at the shelter that's right there by where the site is. And she said that the people who live around there on the street, they find out about it early, and they come out because they know it's like a Christmas party to them. They know it's going to happen, and they get all excited about it, and they're talking about it for the days and weeks before it happens. Have you guys ever experienced backlash? If so, how did you respond back?
Was it 2 years ago, the health department and detectives showed up?
Yeah.
And
Code
they-
compliance.
Code compliance, they told us, they came up with a copy of the code and a detective to hand it to them. And we very kindly told them we weren't going to comply with their orders and we were gonna continue to feed the people and hand out coats. And they eventually went like this and backed off and kind of stood on the corner and watched us do it anyway. They haven't ticketed us yet and have not tried to arrest us yet, so. Otherwise, the outpouring has been nothing but positive, I believe.
And, you know, we do see a momentum in the right direction in Dallas. They've recently lost a big lawsuit against one church that they did ticket, and they've changed their codes a little bit. It's still basically kind of illegal to do this. They said, okay, well, you can feed up to 75 people, so try to include large family gatherings or whatever, but they're still trying to make it illegal to feed the homeless
So
in
now we have to
general.
turn 325 away. You can
Yeah.
only do it for 75.
Right. So we can see it moving in the right direction, but as all government is slow to get to where we want it to be, it hasn't reached that yet.
Why do you think the government would enact such laws?
Well, the government has and does enact things like health codes, and that's so you don't have a restaurant that's poisoning people. You're not employing somebody that doesn't know how to cook food and that sort of thing.
It's for the children.
It's always for the children.
Always.
But I think, you know, in all the ambiance and glory of government, they want to do that. But we have to understand that the government is just a body of people, right? Who get elected to go serve in a position. And a lot of people talk about it these days, whether it's the news, that these people are leaders, right? But no, we're supposed to be the government. That's why it's important to learn about this stuff, is so that when those things are going on, you can call Congress up and you can say, hey, I'm your constituent. I don't like what's going on. You're my servant, and we want you to do this. That's why you're able to vote these people out if you don't like the way that they're acting when it comes election day.
And most of these do get enacted under the guise of health and safety. And, you know, it's usually with a broad brush that they're enacted. And so these personal problems that occur don't really get, you know, they get overlooked, and that's why it seems bad. But in a broader sense, it is for the safety. It's to prevent, you know, poisoning of crowds.
But then, like I said earlier, in the one in Kansas City, because they don't want somebody poisoned, they came and poisoned the food with bleach.
Right.
And then they left the food out just in case somebody might pick it up and do it. So the people who were feeding them in the first place took the bleach food and then went and destroyed it and threw it away so that nobody would pick it up and eat it, because now it was poisoned by the very people who were saying that the ones helping were doing wrong. People can be imperfect, and people in government can be imperfect too.
What defines giving help to the homeless to the government? And then the follow-up question on here also, why can't it just be like when I have a party at home and give food out?
One of the things that we've learned about the shelters, like I said earlier, the shelters, especially Austin Street over there in Dallas, if you're male and under 45, you're not getting a bed. If you are 45 years old and you're going in there that night, they search you like you're going to jail. You don't get to take any pocket knives, anything with you that is contraband. If you have anything more than like a change of clothes and an extra pair of socks, you can take that in with you. And you have to sleep on a cot in a room probably much like this or your cafeteria amongst a lot of other people. And so that's government's way of learning how to solve that problem, is setting up a facility probably much like the one that you're in school here. This is a government building also. And so it's very basic, and these people are searched, and if they have any personal belongings, it's taken from them and thrown away for the night for the safety of everybody else that's there. So some of the people continue to sleep on the street because they have personal belongings, or they have a dog that walks around town with them, or they picked up a kitty cat along the way. They wouldn't be allowed to have that inside in the shelters at nighttime. And that's what the government does with the tax dollars that they have. So it's very minimal.
The other question I have, and I think you guys maybe can answer this better than I, but it's my understanding too that if once you check into the shelter, you've got to stay there until a certain time.
They lock you
Yes,
in.
they lock you in.
You can't just come and go as you please.
Right.
And so a lot of people, just for their own individual ability to be who they want to be and where they want to be, they won't go in there because it's almost like being in jail.
And not to mention you need a valid ID and other things that a lot of these people don't have and don't have the means to get.
If it rains, will you change locations?
No, we actually kind of have our contingency plan already in place. We're gonna bring some tarps, and we're setting up next to a big fence, and we're bringing big RVs and other large vehicles that we're just gonna tie up tarps and create our own little canopy area for all the tables. We'll have about 30 tables that we'll be setting up.
Is there any other place that you guys would really want to start another event like this, and why?
I do this year round. I also travel a lot. I've recently been in Pennsylvania, Missouri. I don't actually have my own place right now. I either stay with my family in Missouri for the last month when my dad is going through surgery, or I'm staying with friends right now because of our event going on. So you could technically say I'm homeless right now, but I work still and I travel around. It's just the way that I live. And say the rest of the question.
Start in other towns.
Start in other towns. I do this throughout the year. Sometimes we come to Fort Worth. My friend on her birthday last year wanted to go hand out food to the homeless, and she spent her own money to buy a bunch of dollar hamburgers. And so for her birthday, she wanted to go help other people, and we went and handed all those out until they were gone. So the Feed the Need event actually has spread to several other cities, and especially Austin this year. Austin now has a new Feed the Need chapter of other people that love what we were doing, and has started down there, and they've been out all week handing stuff out because it's cold right now.
Yeah, and yeah, so they've kind of taken it upon themselves to go on other nights. Also, last year on Christmas, I went out and set up tents again down there because it was another really cold night here in Dallas. And then New Year's, I went down to Houston and set up tents after they had kicked a lot of people out of tents down in Houston the previous week, right before New Year's. Their public statement was they were trying to put people off the streets and push them into the shelters by doing this, but when you go down there, when I went down there, I called all the shelters and everyone was full. Not one had an empty bed in it. So I went down there and set tents back up and put them back in it. And,
Well, the reason they were full last year is because Hurricane Harvey hit and a lot of people lost their houses.
Yeah.
I mean, that was just a hurricane that came in and flooded everything, and so many people were out, and then Houston trying to enact a new law that didn't go through the legislature that nobody could sleep in a tent. And you're talking about millions of people who were affected by that hurricane and all the flooding. And so, yeah, the shelters were there. FEMA had other shelters put up. Some of them were in big stores that they used. And so Mr. Murdoch down here went and put up a tent on the police front porch and took a barbecue grill out there and said, actually, we should be allowed to have tents, even if we have to be able to survive. So I'll just put mine right here, arrest me as the first one, and they didn't do it.
Yeah.
Didn't do it. We made the point to them that the people that were affected by all of that flooding and everything needed to be able to get out of the wind and the rain.
What have you done to change the law, and how can we help?
Like you mentioned, we do have, other branches of groups of people that are more fitted for that. They talk to all the politicians daily, that they're out there having petitions signed, they're getting signatures, so that these politicians know that what their constituents want. That's a big part of it, is convincing that politician that all the people that they're representing want something done. And so things like petitions and getting that in their hands is a very positive thing. It's a way to put pressure on those politicians that, you know, here's half of the people that voted for you saying you need to be doing this, or you won't be in that office the next year. And so that's one of the big things you can do.
Some of the people that are involved with the Feed the Need Austin, they regularly are at the Capitol with petitions, taking those petitions, going and knocking on the door of every person in the legislature, whether they're in the House or the Senate, and delivering those petitions to them saying, look, your constituents, all these people, all these names, all these thousands of people want you to do something about it. Those petitions and stuff, they really help in that legislative process. We don't necessarily get into that because the stuff we do takes up our time. We work regular jobs as it is. So all this other stuff that we do is on our own time.
And then being in Austin, it's a little easier for them to come and bang on the door every day of the politicians.
I'm going to ask every question here, and if you think that you gave me one that I'm not going to ask, I'm just saving a more interesting one for the last. So if you've got another one, write it down, because we've got about 7 minutes. Do you have a lot of people that come with pets? If so, can we bring things for the pets?
Yeah, so we actually had a lot of dog food to give out last year because some of them do have pets. Whether they've got up in a little group of trees and that's where they camp out, and that's kind of their house for now. Some of them do have dogs and cats.
And so not as many of these people have pets as, say, the people that are over at the Bridge. The Bridge is another homeless shelter that's in town. They actually have a big kennel inside, about 40 or so cages for the poor people that have dogs that can come and stay there. If you do get dog food that you want to donate, that might be a place that we could go drop it off, because they would need it.
About how long do you believe it will take of this group before the law is changed?
I believe it's already started to change since the first year. They've actually eased off on it. Somebody messaged me yesterday, and let's see, I'd have to pull it. Somebody messaged me yesterday. I actually contacted the city. They've eased up the laws again. There's a statute that they did for Dallas, and now they're making it where it's a ticketable offense if you feed more than 75 people off a table somewhere.
Yeah, and that's kind of what you see before the laws can catch up to it, is you'll see them back off and stop really enforcing it because they understand the people don't want that enforced. And so that's kind of where we're at with that. They have changed it some, working in that direction, and have stopped really, you know, they're not like Kansas City did and out there pouring bleach on our foods. So hopefully, you know, as soon enough. But until the meantime, they're not really enforcing it at the moment.
If I were to start something like Feed the Need, what would be my first step?
Taking that first step, caring about something and doing it. Let's say they serve you anchovies every Friday in the cafeteria. How many of you like anchovies? Probably nobody. So if none of you get it, and all those fish sat there stinking like fish all day long, eventually they would quit serving more. That's probably why you don't have fish on Friday. You know, it takes not just one, but sometimes the first one taking that step, and then others following, because it's a good thing to do.
And you know, real life scenarios of like how the Feed the Need really grew. Social media is a common thing now, and it spreads ideas very quickly and easily, especially among the like-minded people. There's groups and there's other already organized groups of people that you can jump into, different pages of people that are already of certain mindsets that you can go in and you know, what I find to work the best is when you create an event, or you know, a day to go do something, create a flyer for it, create a time and a place, and say, hey, everybody meet here on this day and we're going to do this, and start posting that up to all the pages with the potential groups in it, and you know, not just the interest group, but that potential group too. And then what you find is it grows pretty rapidly, and I've created my own groups, start kind of tagging that link in the other interest group pages of people that might be interested, and it'll grow. So those are the first steps.
Are there any other events that y'all do?
Not recently. I haven't done any. I've been preoccupied with this in life and jobs, but
There has been other groups other events we've done. We've done open carry walks, we're gun rights advocates because with rights we believe that you first have the right to religion, press, freedom of speech, and the second one is to be able to bear your arms. If your arms are bound, then you're enslaved by somebody. So I don't believe it's just about firearms. I believe it's the ability to work, to be able to pick up a tool, to hug your family, to grow food in the ground. And so we have done a lot to try and help change the laws for firearms in Texas in the Second Amendment.
yeah, and that being the default right, in my opinion, because once they've taken that, as we can see it through history, once the populations are de-armed, they take away the other rights, and there's nothing that the people then can do about it, other than sharpen their farming implements.
What do we do if the cops come to shoot us down?
Well, last year I think there was more of us than there was of them. The police did come, the detectives came and talked to him and I, and then they had squad cars driving through the rest of the day, but they basically stood across the street and didn't do anything.
And we do have a good rapport with the local police. There'll be some plainclothes officers there. They're people I know. They've got my phone number. I've got their phone number saved in my phone. We have an open dialogue about the events and the things that we're doing. It's not a surprise to them when we show up.
We went to one. I was telling Mr. Holcomb here. We were going to an anti-firearm event earlier this year, and we showed up and we were carrying. And it took the detectives an hour to find us in the crowd. And when they showed up, they went, "Oh, good, it's you guys," because we have spoken with them and stuff. Something like firearms is something to protect yourself and your family and be able to defend yourself, or in this case, defend the homeless people, and making sure. And we found that when you actually meet somebody on the same playing field, whether it be the police who are armed or even the citizenry that we are, it gives us the right to be just as powerful as the government. And in doing so, we can actually have more freedom in our lives to do what we want to, in my mind, as long as we're not being immoral and doing things to hurt other people. Then you're violating other people's rights.
That's all the questions that were submitted, and we've got maybe a couple more minutes. So if there's no more questions, let's we've got about another minute. So let's talk about this, okay? Anything that you bring, you guys are all, of course, invited. I can't provide transportation or anything like that, but you're all, of course, invited to come and take part. If that's not an option for you, that's fine, okay? Bring something if you can to donate, right? Something that I can take. Backpacks especially. Backpacks are huge. If you've got an old backpack you're not using anymore, I mean, if you're literally, your personal belongings are things that you can carry and that's all you've got, a backpack's pretty important, right? Because you've got to have something to carry your stuff. So even if it's just a bag, right, a backpack, a bag, something that somebody could carry their belongings in that you're not using, I'll take up stuff today, tomorrow, the rest of this week, and then Friday afternoon, I'll load everything up with my pickup and get it ready to carry out there Saturday. So, just another pitch, I guess, for bringing stuff. Only really had one thing to donate. I've got a box of stuff that I'm going to bring in and put in here probably tomorrow. But just, if you can, bring something to donate. Okay? And that's it. Thank you. I knew it was time to go, so you are dismissed.